What is up, folks, and welcome to the BJT show where I talk about sports, media, entertainment, and such things. I'm your host, Byron, and in this episode, I'm interviewing a former Pittsburgh Steelers and Arizona Cardinals cornerback and two-time Super Bowl champion with the Pittsburgh Steelers, Bryant Mcfadden. Bryant, thank you for joining me.
What's happening? Thank you for the invite.
So, you played your college football at Florida State University. What made you choose Florida State, and what was your favorite memory from playing at Florida State?
Good question. There's a lot of different reasons why I went to Florida State, but I think the top reasons was number one, they were one of the hotter teams in college football. That fall season, which was 1999, they were undefeated, top dog in the rankings, and eventually went on to play in the national championship game against Virginia Tech, who was led by Michael Vick. So that played a huge part. I wanted to be a part of an organization, a football team that was nationally considered one of the top teams in college football, and that was Florida State. Secondly, they had a legend at the head coaching position for them in Bobby Bowden. Bobby Bowden was one of the more respected coaches in college football. He still was coaching in the peak of his career, and with him, I knew he wasn't going to go anywhere. I wanted to be a part of a head coach that would be there throughout my career in college athletics. I knew he wasn't going anywhere. And the last major reason for me going to Florida State was the individual that was going to be coaching me, Mickey Andrews, who was a defensive coordinator, but he also was a secondary coach. So I would be hands-on with him. And when you talk about one of the more respected names defensively in college football at that time, it was no one better than Mickey Andrews, in my opinion. And he coached so many legendary players in the secondary that went on to have great NFL careers. So I felt like if he could help, refine my skills in the secondary along with how he coached the game, I would get an opportunity to go to the NFL.
Gotcha. Is Florida State DBU?
I think so. And I know when people hear me say that, they instantly say I'm biased. And there is a bit of a bias tied to me believing so. But the reason why I think Florida State is DBU is because Florida State has been relevant in terms of defensive backs in different eras of the game of football, right? I don't know if there are any other university that could say we were relevant in terms of producing DBs, having high-level DBs in the 80s. I don't know if there's another university that can say we were relevant in the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, and even currently right now. That's who Florida State has been. You know what I mean? I've had this discussion with my cousin who went to LSU, and he talks about LSU. And yeah, right now, no question, you could say LSU is DBU. But where would you say that in the 80s? Could you have said that in the 90s? You know what I mean? So I think there lies the gap of separation in terms of consistency and being able to sustain.
Yeah, Florida State has had so many good defensive backs like Jalen Ramsey, LaMarcus Joyner. It's just so many defensive backs from that university. With me being a Florida Gators fan, I think we have some good defensive backs too, but Florida State has definitely had a lot of. Describe your journey to the NFL.
It was a fun journey. No question that there was adversity, and it makes you really appreciate that journey when you face some type of adversity and you fight through it and you win. You win that battle. But for me, that's all I ever wanted to do. Growing up, football is my first love. That was the first earthly thing that I fell in love with. Football, right? And being blessed enough to have the talent and the athleticism to play it, and being blessed enough to have the mindset to work to try to be better. Going to Florida State was huge for me, playing with some of the best players in the country, coming from different parts of the country. We all under the same roof trying to achieve the same goal, help, sharpen my skills, and just taking advantage of the opportunities when they presented themselves to me on game day was huge. And then, being healthy enough to get that call, to be able to display my skill sets, to be able to get that call. It was an unbelievable road for me And that's, like I said, that's all I ever wanted to do. I'm such a blessed individual. I thank God every day for blessing me, because growing up, that's what I wanted to do. That's it. That was no other option. I wanted to play football. Career day growing up in elementary school, other kids would bring doctors or, bring books of pictures of doctors and lawyers or firefighters. Everything I brought was associated with football. You know what I mean? So I wasn't going to be deterred. I wasn't going to think I couldn't get it done or make it happen. I always knew I could. And I was happy to be able to be put in positions to do so. And then when I finally got drafted, it was like, wow, my dream has come true. Now it's time to continue to build on my dream.
Hmm. What was it like playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers and Arizona Cardinals? And also, did you have a welcome to the NFL?
What was it like? It was two different, you know, atmospheres. Of course, I played with Pittsburgh longer. I was only in Arizona 1 year, but that 1 year in Arizona was really, really good because they just competed, for a Super Bowl against my Pittsburgh Steelers at the time. So the following year, the expectations were pretty high considering what they were not in years past, and we were very, very successful. We won the division, got to the playoffs, so we had a lot of success. When you play for the Pittsburgh Steelers, number one, that's a storied, rich tradition organization. The prestige, the foundation, the fandemonium that's attached to that organization is like no other organization, I believe, in professional sports. Now there are some legendary, like iconic, organizations in professional sports and other sports like the Dodgers and the Yankees and the Cubs. When you look at the Celtics and the Lakers and the NBA. But when it comes to the fan base in Pittsburgh, I don't know there's another organization that can top or match what they provide. Week in and week out, it doesn't matter where you travel to. The stadium is filled with Steeler fans. You can go any place in the country, you're going to run across Steeler fans. And we're talking about fans that were fans since day one. It's almost like growing up, if your father was a young adult or teenager in the 70s, he was a Steeler fan. And whatever children he had, and the same can be said for the females, their children are Steeler fans. So it's a family oriented tradition of fans that grew up to be Steeler fans, and that's all they knew. And the thing I love about Steeler fans and our fan base is that, depending on when you were born, but most of our fans they've witnessed a Super Bowl in their lifetime. From the elderly fans in the 70s to what we've done in the 2000s. Most fans can't say that. They can't say I watched my favorite team win a championship or win multiple championships. So we have a story-rich tradition there in Pittsburgh that's hard to match from any other organization. And like I said, our fans really, really, it's a thing. It's not temporary. It's like a life. It's like a way of life. When you're a Steeler fan, it's a way of life. And it was unbelievable, my run there in Pittsburgh, being able to be a part of 2 Super Bowls that we played in 3, but we won 2, something that will forever be remembered.
Yeah, the Pittsburgh Steelers are definitely a historic franchise in the NFL with so much history, especially with all the Hall of Famers that they have. What was it like winning 2 Super Bowls? So you won with the Steelers with both Super Bowls. So you won Super Bowl 40 against the Seattle Seahawks, and then you won Super Bowl 43 against the Arizona Cardinals. How was that? And going through all the media days and just the feeling of winning a Super Bowl. How was that like?
It was great. I'll say this: the first one was better because it was my first time going through everything that comes with the Super Bowl. The extra attention, the extra media, all the off the field obligations. That was like, wow. The second Super Bowl was more like, you know, I've been on this roller coaster before, so I kind of know when to brace for the big drop. I know when to brace going up. I knew how to handle some of those situations better because I saw it years ago in my first one. But they're both equally impressive. They're both equally memorable. I think winning the Super Bowl is overly, you know, enjoyed. But what even matches that is the process. Like, we all remember the confetti coming down and everyone is grabbing the Super Bowl trophy, the Lombardi, and you're kissing it and you're hugging it. But even what makes that moment better is that the process of getting there. Like going back to the first day of training camp, going back to the first day of our conditioning test, when we're embarking in the building block to build a Super Bowl caliber team. And we're doing it together as teammates. And we lost some guys, we gained some guys, but just the core foundational pieces that were there in Latrobe, PA, where we had training camp, and just remembering everything that it took for us to build a championship caliber team. And then when we finally built it, it was about taking care of our business week in and week out. That's what you really don't forget either. You really appreciate those moments because it's like, yo, for us to get to playing in Detroit, for us to get to playing in Tampa, the 2 Super Bowl sites that I participated in, we had to start somewhere. And the building block started the first day of training camp in Latrobe. Actually, the building block started the first day of mini camps before we even got to Latrobe, OTAs. So I really appreciate that because we had so many memorable memories together as groups, as guys, man, and teammates, man, that led us to do what we wanted to do, which was the ultimate dream achievement, hoisting that sticky Lombardi.
Yeah, winning one Super Bowl is hard enough, but winning two is crazy because it's so hard to get to that big game, and it's definitely difficult to win it too. And you went to three of them and won two, so I think that's a really big accomplishment. As a rookie, were you hazed, and did you have any rookie duties like carrying helmets, shoulder pads, and all that kind of stuff? I know I've seen Hard Knocks episodes where they're taping people to the goalpost and pouring Gatorade on them and stuff like that. Did you have to deal with any of that?
And I wasn't hazed. I had a great group of veteran guys on our team. My Pittsburgh Steelers team was filled with good people, bro. We didn't do anything disrespectful. Now, there were rookie obligations that every rookie had to endure. You talked about carrying helmets and pads. Yeah, I did that a few times. It wasn't consistent. The main thing that I had to do was rookie dinner. I had to take the defensive backs out to dinner, and then I had to get everyone to New York. We had a rookie dinner and a rookie night when we went to New York and we partied. Now that was pretty extensive. That was intense. That dinner bill was pricey, right? That dinner bill was pricey, and then get everyone to New York and taking care of everything like that was pricey. But it was all done in a respectful way, and I knew that was something that every rookie had to endure. The unfortunate part for me was I was the only drafted rookie in our secondary, so I had to take care of everything by myself. And yeah. You're talking about a dinner bill north of $8,000. You know what I mean? So I had to handle all by myself. And then, of course, like I said, we went to New York City and had a good time. So that was the only big requirement as a rookie in '05 that I had to endure, but they never pressed me in a disrespectful way. It was like, yo, you got to do this, you got to do that. They were transparent in what was expected of me in a respectful, professional way. And I appreciate that because I've heard stories from other rookies in other teams where you talked about getting taped up the goalposts and things like that, or being talked to in a certain way. The guys in Pittsburgh, bro, we were great dudes, bro. Great dudes. They always were very, very respectful, professional, and they wanted you to go out and just compete, fight hard, compete. And, we did so on the football field. And of course, we had great results because of that.
$8,000 on a rookie dinner. That's a lot. Were they ordering like T-bone steaks and getting some, what
And
is it,
the
Hennessy
most,
or
ex- the most
Corona or
expensive
something?
thing was the alcohol. I had to buy 3 bottles of Louis the 13th. I don't know if you know what Louis the 13th is, but it's super expensive. I think a bottle goes for about over 2 bands. And
Oh
I
my
don't even
God.
drink. So I had to get 3 bottles of Louis the 13th. And then, of course, everything else came with the dinner. And the crazy part about it, we ordering food. I was so dang pissed off and just spooked because I didn't know how much the bill was going to be. Because I bought the bottles of Louis the 13th in advance. So I already had that portion out of the way. And now I'm like, I don't know exactly what this bill going to look like. So I'm so nervous. All I ordered was Caesar salad. I tried to get the cheapest thing on the menu. to try to help the bill a little bit. And I'm looking at these boys order food to go to take to their significant others. And then it was a whole bunch of food we ain't even touch. I'm all the way in my feelings. And I remember so this is back in '05. So one of the older guys, Mike Logan, told me, like, hey, B-Mac, make sure you bring your checkbook. Because, you know, when you have a debit card, like I had a debit card, I have a credit card at the time, it's like, you know, you got a limit. You only can swipe so much. So I had to pay for the dinner with a check.
Wow. Yeah, I've heard stories from different, NFL players talking about the rookie dinner and everything. So 8,000 seems, less than what other
It
people
was
have
over.
said. So,
It was over
oh,
8,000.
over 8,000.
It was over 8,000.
Wow.
Yeah. It was over. Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen some stories of rookies saying that the bill was 15K and 20K, buying all the drinks and all this stuff. So yeah, I
Mhm.
see that it can get crazy.
Yeah, I can. No question.
You talk about some of your teammates and how, you had so many veterans and good leadership in Pittsburgh. What was it like being on the same team as players like Troy Polamalu, Ryan Clark, Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown, and others?
It was great, man. We were super talented, but we were hard workers. Every guy emulated the next guy. We all had the same mindset. A selfless group that didn't mind putting their hand in the pile to try to hoist that sticky Lombardi. Selfless, right? We didn't have egos. We didn't have individuals. We were a team. We're still a close-knit group. We're in a group chat together. We talk, we text, we communicate. We usually see each other maybe once a year. So it wasn't just a working relationship. We actually had a genuine, authentic relationship, which is why we had so much success on the football field. So we had sound leadership and we had sound players that embraced their role, and we were selfless. You know, we were the epitome of how you want to build a championship organization. Like-minded guys who were selfless.
Yeah, team camaraderie and leadership is so important, especially as it pertains to winning a championship.
Yep.
So you've played against some really great receivers over your career, like Reggie Wayne, Larry Fitzgerald, Andre Johnson, Terrell Owens, and others. But if you could pick the top sort of 3 to 5 best receivers that you played against, who would they be?
That's crazy. That's a tough list. A name that doesn't get talked about enough is Jimmy Smith for Jacksonville. Jimmy Smith was a straight legit goon. Jimmy Smith is Jamar Chase in today's NFL world, in my opinion. So I would have Jimmy Smith on that list. Terrell Owens was a problem. Um, another problem. Steve Smith. You know, Steve Smith was a legit problem, and it's hard to kind of knock off only add just three guys because I played in the era where you had Reggie Wayne, Marvin Harrison, when you had Randy Moss, when you had at that time Chad Johnson. So there are a lot of legendary, legit are are wide receiver ones out there that were hell raisers week in and week out. But just to highlight three guys, I would definitely highlight those guys because I really believe, of course, T.O.'s in the Hall of Fame, but the other two guys don't get talked about enough.
hmm Yeah, I understand that for sure. I grew up an Indianapolis Colts fan, so I know a lot about those teams with Reggie Wayne and Marvin Harrison, and then, being an avid NFL fan, watching players like Terrell Owens, Steve Smith, and others. So I know I may be young, but I do know about Jimmy Smith, Keenan McCardell, and those Jacksonville Jaguars teams.
Straight dogs, yeah.
Yeah, I grew up a pretty big Reggie Wayne fan and Chad Johnson fan, so much so that I saw Reggie wearing a pair of green football gloves during a game against, I think, Green Bay. This had to be like '07, '08, maybe even 2009. And so I had a pair of gray football gloves and I took a green pen and I colored like the gloves green just so I could have gloves like Reggie Wayne. Or with Chad Johnson, I saw he had an orange chin strap because that's the Bengals colors. So I was like, okay, I want an orange chin strap. And I told the people at the sports store that I wanted a high hookup chin strap where they kind of make it so the top part of the chin strap clicks on the top of the helmet. Because I was like, I want to be like the NFL player, so I want y'all to do it like that. So, but yeah, I think that's definitely cool for sure. You played against a lot of great quarterbacks in your career. Who do you think the top three quarterbacks that you played against?
Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. I'll say Drew Brees.
With those great quarterbacks that you played against, let's take Tom Brady for instance. What was it like preparing to play against a player like Tom?
It was very, very difficult because Tom and Peyton had the same like character traits as a quarterback. They knew so much. It was hard to really manipulate their eyes or manipulate their mind because they've seen it all and they were so well diverse in terms of studying. But it was hard because you knew you really couldn't really show them something they never really seen before. Especially Tom Brady. Tom Brady was always in his bag when it came to just the above the shoulder game. So it was tough. Those were guys where you talked about when you think you know, you don't know. When you think you got them and you manipulated the coverage for them to kind of be in a confusing spot, you don't. So those two guys were really, intelligent. Football IQ was at an all-time high, especially Tom Brady. So there lies where you just got to try to, win your matchups because, when you think you got pressure coming from somewhere they don't know, they know. They slide the line to that direction or, they bring in some extra protection to help them, execute. So it's always a mental battle with those guys more than the physical, clearly.
So with those great defenses that y'all have had and playing against Tom Brady and everything like that, it didn't seem like Tom was out there scared. Did y'all ever trash talk with each other?
Tom was an individual who did get emotionally involved and talk trash. You know what I mean? Definitely more than Peyton or Drew Brees. And you've seen that. You saw that towards the end of his career when he was with Tampa. He got emotionally fired up. You know what I mean? And I appreciate that. I love when a quarterback is actually in the game. He's engaged. Just not just throwing the footballs. He actually engaged. But yeah, Tom was the one who talked a little more trash than the other two guys didn't really say too much. But Tom would get fired up. And I think if you watched him long enough, you've seen instances when he gets in the game. He's talking trash. He's saying a few expletives or something like that, cussing you out. You know what I mean? Because he's involved, and I had no issue with that at all. I like it.
It's nice. Speaking of Peyton Manning and other different quarterbacks, I remember when the Steelers are playing against the Colts in the AFC Championship game at the RCA Dome. It's now Lucas Oil Stadium, but the RCA Dome is what it was called back then.
I
And
thought
I
they
remember,
tear the RCA dome down.
I think so. I think so.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then it became Lucas Oil Stadium.
Lucas Oil. Yep.
But so back then, Colts were playing the Steelers. The Colts were at home. It was an AFC Championship game. I want to say it was 2005 or,
It
probably
was
in January
2006 playoffs.
2006.
January.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so Jerome Bettis fumbled at the goal line. Ben Roethlisberger chased the defensive back down who had the fumble and had like a shoestring tackle. What was going through y'all's mind when that happened?
Dang. What just happened? Like, right. Like, because we dominated that game for 4 quarters and we had their number. We felt like at that moment, Jerome was going to finish the game for us, of course, score a touchdown. We did not expect for a turnover to happen. And when it happened, we were in shell shock. We were like, oh, shoot. And we ran out, and it was like, shit, here comes the sheriff, Peyton Manning, looking for action. And the first thing I told myself was, well, I'm the only rookie on the football field. 9 times out of 10, I'm going to get a whole lot of action this way. And I just said, Mac, bow your back, man, and fight. Do not be the reason why we do not advance to the next round. And that's all I was saying to myself. And those plays, it was quiet. I couldn't hear anything. And to your point, the RCA Dome used to be jumping, especially during that moment where we fumbled, they recovered the ball, Nick Harper, he's running. Their fans are going crazy. You couldn't hear anything. And we tried on the football field, and I was like, right, it's gut checking time. And to my point, I got targeted like 3 times during that drive. And the 2 most important passes, I was able to stand up. and Vanderjack came out and missed the field goal, we advanced to the AFC Championship game to play against the Denver Broncos. But that team, to your point, I know you said you're a Colts, you grew up Reggie Wayne fan and the Colts fans. That was one of the more talented teams that didn't compete for a Super Bowl. The Colts, that team was loaded. They had Peyton Manning, who was in his prime, Marvin Harrison, who was in his prime, Reggie Wayne was in his prime, Ezra and James, Dallas Clark, Stokely was a third wide receiver, Dwight Freeney, who was a terror, Bob Sanders. They had some legit studs on that team, and they were considered one of the best teams, not just in the AFC, but the entire NFL, and they didn't even make it to the Super Bowl. So I think, me personally, I think that team in 05 was better than the Super Bowl team that actually won it for the Colts, because they were clicking at an all-time high. But we found a way to get the job done, and they didn't go, we went. You know what I mean? So that's something that I never forget.
And I meant to say divisional round because you said you played against the Broncos in the AFC Championship
Yeah, that
game.
was the division round.
So,
Yep.
so yeah, divisional round. And speaking of Jerome Bettis, I know he fumbled in that game, but either way, y'all still won and ended up winning the Super Bowl later on. A lot of credit to Jerome Bettis, one of the best ever. So, I just wanted to mention that.
Yes, sir. Hall of Famer.
So, what do you think about the current state of the Pittsburgh Steelers now?
I think we're in a good spot, outside of the loss to the Cleveland Browns most recently, but I think we're still in a good spot, being 8-3 currently in the NFL, top of the AFC still. We have exceeded the expectations based on what most people predicted the Steelers to do. You still got a lot of ball left to be played, but when you look at being 11 games in and you 8-3, that's a good spot to be in. Just got to keep it up.
Yeah, I think the Steelers are a good team. They've had some good wins recently, especially against the Ravens. And even with being 8-3, and then like at the beginning of the season, they're like, okay, who's going to start at quarterback? Are we going with Justin Fields for a little while until Russell Wilson gets back healthy? Just kind of all this stuff, but they've managed to do really well. Like you were saying,
Yeah.
still be 8-3.
Yeah.
You also have a podcast called All Things Covered with Patrick Peterson, who played cornerback for the Cardinals. And y'all have interviewed people like Ryan Clark, Michael Penix Jr., Richard Sherman, Odell Beckham Jr., and others. How's that been with your podcast?
That's been great. It's been great. Pat was doing it while active in the National Football League, and currently he's not active. So he's kind of seen it from two different sides right now. He's really enjoying it. I've been enjoying it since day one, getting a chance to interact with individuals who we have never really interacted with on that kind of platform. It's been super dope. We really enjoy it. And, just talking sports, something that a lot of people love to do. And I love trying to be a voice for some fans who might not get chance to hear their voice heard. So we both enjoy it, so we love the ride.
And you also work in sports media too. So how has that transition been from playing in the NFL to also covering the NFL as an analyst?
It's been really, really good. That's the closest I can get to competing. I can't play anymore. So being able to watch the game and talk about the game and try to shed light on a situation that a lot of people might be confused with, it helps because I love being able to entertain, uh, inform, and educate. You know what I mean? So that gives me the ability to do all of those things and do so in a competitive mindset. Wanting to try to go out and be the best and make sure that my analysis is always where it needs to be. And when I'm done, someone walked away saying, I watched him and I learned something. I didn't know X, Y, and Z, or he shed light on this situation. I think that's that's one of the pleasurable things that I love about what I do now.
Uh-huh. Nice, nice. And I'm in sports media too, so whenever I'm talking about football, I try to break the game down well enough so people who, understand football a good bit will understand, but also people who may not know football as well can understand also.
Yep.
So you played in the NFL, played defensive back. Who were your favorite defensive backs of all time?
Ronnie Lott, Charles Woodson, Rod Woodson, Champ Bailey, Jack Tatum, Mel Blount, Dion, uh, I'll say that'd be my list of older guys. Yeah, yeah.
So we were talking about how you won two Super Bowls, but you've been to three and you lost one. And you lost that Super Bowl against the Green Bay Packers. How did that feel to, get all the way to that game but lose?
If I had an option of playing the Super Bowl and knowing I'm losing, I don't want to go. I wouldn't want to go. Unfortunately, I knew how it feel to win, so I never experienced losing until that moment, and that was something that I still have never watched that game, the full game of that. Sucks to this day because I should have had three. And losing that one Super Bowl makes me not feel as good as I should about the two that I won. So that ain't that I can imagine how San Francisco feels. Phew. At least we won a few of them, but to get there you lose, man. Miss me with that. I'd rather stay home, not play. I don't even want to make the playoffs if that's the case.
Yeah, I'm sure, that makes a person feel bad when they get all the way to the Super Bowl and then they lose. I know with football players, yes, they made plays on the field and all those sorts of things, but I think football players think about the plays that they didn't make or the mistakes that they made during the game that probably cost them the game. Or even if you won the game, I'm sure some football players are like, okay, yeah, we won, but we still had these penalties over here. We still had this problem over here. So, we need to fix those things before the next game. So it's not a situation where, these different aspects could lose us the game.
Yeah.
So again, like I was saying, with you playing defensive back, do you think you could guard me right now, 1-on-1?
Guard who? You?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no question.
You think so?
I still work out.
I do too.
You worked out this morning?
No, I didn't. I was actually going to work out after this.
Yeah, I still work out and I still run, so no question.
So I hope y'all enjoyed the episode. Shout out to Bryant Mcfadden for coming on. Be sure to follow me on all my social medias, which will be in the description box, and his will also be in the description box as well. But hope y'all had a good one, and peace out.